Well, folks, I know you might be exhausted by now, but unfortunately, we have more bad breaking news courtesy of Donald Trump, who just had a total public meltdown on Truth Social and announced that he is unilaterally ending trade negotiations with our biggest trading partner, Canada, and declaring that within 7 days he will be imposing punitive tariffs against them. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Once again, we are trading by tweet. This is trade policy in the United States anytime Donald Trump loses his shit and decides to rant about it on Truth Social. So he said, "We have just been informed that Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced that they are putting a digital services tax on our American technology companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country. They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us also. Based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions on trade with Canada effective immediately. We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the United States of America within the next 7-day period. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Yeah, so Trump is lashing out and just, again, trading by tweet and unilaterally ending trade negotiations with our biggest trading partner. This is what CNN has to say on the matter. Trump is ending trade talks with Canada. Trump ceased trade talks with Canada and will soon announce a new tariff rate the country will have to pay, he said in a Truth Social post on Friday. The decision to end negotiations, which have been ongoing for several months, came after Canada announced a digital service tax, Trump said, calling it, quote, "a direct and blatant attack on our country." Digital services taxes are a way for countries to tax online services, in contrast to taxes on physical products. Countries with these taxes can collect revenue from large companies that operate online, even if the business is unprofitable. American firms, especially big tech companies such as Meta, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, are disproportionately affected by DSTs, according to a report published last year by the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service. Trump has taken particular issue with DSTs throughout trade negotiations with other countries, commonly referring to them as a, quote, non-tariff trade barriers. Canada has a new DST that is set to take effect on Monday that will be retroactive to 2022. Canada is the top buyer of American goods, importing $349 billion worth last year, according to the Department of Commerce. Meanwhile, Canada shipped $413 billion worth of goods to the U.S. last year, the third highest trade source of foreign goods. Levying higher tariffs on Canada would likely cause the country to retaliate by imposing higher tariffs on American goods. That would likely take a toll on both countries' economies. Prime Minister Mark Carney's office told CNN the Canadian government is considering its response. At the start of his second term, Trump threatened to impose a 25% tariff across all Canadian exports, with rates going even higher for specific products. However, as it stands, most Canadian goods have been exempt from those 25% tariffs as long as they comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement he negotiated in his first term. You know that trade agreement that he constantly shit talks? That trade agreement? He's hoping you've forgotten. He's hoping you have the memory of a goldfish. He's hoping you were easily distracted. But the very trade agreement that Trump has been ranting about for more than a year is the trade agreement that he created in the first place and bragged about in 2020 when he created it. So once again, this man is totally inconsistent and a pathological liar, the likes of which we've never seen. The biggest exceptions, with some fine print, are the 25% tariffs on all foreign cars, car parts, steel, and aluminum. Trump later doubled the tariff on all steel and aluminum imports to 50%. Goods coming from Canada that were not USMCA compliant have faced a combined 50% tariff rate. In response to those auto tariffs, Canada levied a 25% tariff on US-made vehicles that aren't compliant with the USMCA. Canada also retaliated against Trump's initial 25% steel and aluminum tariffs by rolling out a 25% tariff on roughly $43 billion worth of U.S. goods, including whiskey, sporting gear, and household appliances. And many of these tariffs were actually targeted specifically to try to accrue as much of a backlash as possible in red states, in Republican states. They were targeted as much as they could be. So yeah, there you have it. Donald Trump is unilaterally withdrawing from trade negotiations with our biggest trading partner, and just ranting about it on Truth Social. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is much more thoughtful than Trump, is taking his time. Like, hey, we are aware, and we are very carefully considering our response. It's a wise thing to do. But I will say Carney has gone public in previous statements indicating that he is aware that the United States can no longer be relied on in the way that it was during the Biden years or the Obama years, that Donald Trump has become too much of an unreliable trade partner. And so that Canada will have to start looking abroad, perhaps to the European Union, perhaps to China even. That's not good for us, right? But this is how Donald Trump governs. Now, you may recall the Liberation Day tariffs back in April. Donald Trump promised that he would end trade deficits. I will point out that a new report, I should have had this brought up, I'll bring it up right now, but a new report indicates that the trade deficit, which Donald Trump is obsessed with, even though they're not inherently there's nothing inherently wrong with a trade deficit. But actually, the U.S. trade deficit surged despite Trump's tariffs. It was a bombshell report that was recently released. The U.S. trade gap increased in May by about 11% as exports decreased and imports remained relatively unchanged, the Commerce Department Census Bureau reported on Thursday. A White House spokesperson told Newsweek of the numbers that, quote, snapshots of the data miss the bigger picture when it comes to the administration's economic policies and their effects. Yeah, but this whole point is that you guys have got it in your head that trade deficits are inherently bad, and Donald Trump is working overtime to correct a trade deficit. Well, his efforts have produced the exact opposite effect. There is nothing wrong with a trade deficit to sane people, but by Trump's own logic, he is actively making things so much worse and therefore should be relentlessly mocked and criticized for it, as should any other Republican who supports his bullshit, insane economic policy. Trade deficits surged on his watch because of his policies. It is his fault. He should be made fun of relentlessly for it. This is the stupidity of Donald Trump in real time. Now, that was the whole purpose of the Liberation Day tariffs, was to, again, correct the trade deficit, right? Now we know it's having the opposite effect. But Trump was also asked about the tariff deadline. What's going to happen? You promised 90 deals in 90 days. You're off by about 89 deals at the moment. All we have, I believe, is an inked deal with the United Kingdom, our 11th biggest trading partner. And most economists who have reviewed it have said it's really not, that earth-shattering or groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination. So far, this has been a total failure. Trump has indicated that we've signed some sort of deal with China, but the best I can tell is that there's a framework which Beijing has agreed to, but nothing that is like wet ink on paper, and certainly nothing in terms of like details that are truly robust for the American economy. So again, they're constantly under-delivering. And at a press conference earlier today, Trump indicated that that deadline, the 90 deals in 90 days, could be quite flexible, and maybe he would change his mind on it.
He hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there are some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking it billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of a trillion, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charged us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them, and they don't like it. So they're upset because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go.
So again, indicating that he's quite flexible on this. There's another clip when he effectively says the same thing. Will the tariffs snap back on July 9th?
On July 9th, is that July 9th date set for tariffs to snap back, or could there be a...
We can do whatever we want. We could extend it. We could make it shorter. I'd like to make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%.
That's not a trade deal. That's just you imposing a tariff unilaterally. And of course, he's going to try to spin it. Yeah, we got one mutual deal with the United Kingdom, but in all 89 other instances, I sent a letter out. That's the deal. No, that's a tariff. This is absurd. This is what I mean. He's constantly moving the goalposts. He's constantly shifting, the parameters. And now, again, because he's pissed off at Canada, he's effectively undoing months of careful negotiations, probably, really setting back his commerce and trade departments or commerce and treasury departments every which way, undermining them. And who knows what will happen now? It sure sounds like we're about to start another trade war with our biggest trading partner, Canada, and all because Donald Trump is emotionally unstable. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.